Demetrious Johnson has reached a point where the invitations still come. The curiosity never really fades, but the urge to compete is gone. Retirement hasn't stopped people from asking what it would take to see him back, especially when the format sounds lighter and the risks seem smaller. This time, though, the topic wasn't MMA, it was wrestling, and whether Mighty Mouse could be tempted onto the mat again. The idea came from a familiar face. Henry Cejudo, a longtime rival who has decided to compete again in real American freestyle, floated the suggestion directly to Johnson. The exchange wasn't tense or awkward. Instead, it highlighted a clear contrast between two elite fighters now in very different places. One still feels the pull to compete, the other is completely comfortable having moved on. The moment happened after a celebrity flag football challenge at UC Berkeley Memorial Stadium and later appeared on Johnson's YouTube channel. Cejudo spoke enthusiastically about his return, praising the opportunity to wrestle again and pointing out that real American freestyle pays well. He even nudged Johnson by mentioning that people were calling him out, framing it as respect more than a challenge. Johnson shut it down immediately. Smiling but firm, he told Cejudo not to try to drag him back into competition. He made it clear that he's retired, busy with other parts of life, and not interested in wrestling at this stage. He explained that he's never competed in freestyle wrestling and has no desire to start now, adding that the motivation simply isn't there anymore. He acknowledged Cejudo's mindset with respect, telling him that he's still the competitor between the two. That honesty matters when you consider their shared history. In early 2024, Johnson had said a trilogy fight with Cejudo could happen if the money was big enough, shortly after he knocked out Adriano Moraz to win the one flyweight title. The fight never materialized. Johnson defended the belt, retired as champion, and closed the door on any future cross-promotional bouts. Cejudo went the opposite direction. His UFC comeback stalled after several losses, leading to another retirement in late 2025. Still chasing competition, he's now set to headline Real American Freestyle 6 against Urijah Faber. Their rivalry remains tied at one win each, but this exchange made it clear it won't be revisited. Johnson is genuinely happy in retirement, though he does carry one regret, and it has nothing to do with his own career. He believes he played a role in convincing Cejudo to come back after his first retirement, something he now thinks hurts Cejudo's legacy. Johnson has said that Cejudo's loss to Aljamain Sterling marked the beginning of a decline, and that he feels responsible for encouraging that return. At the time, Johnson thought MMA offered the best mix of money and opportunity, but he now admits that perspective ignored a simple truth: Father Time always wins. Watching Cejudo lose his final fight to Peyton Talbot in December 2025, taken down with one of his own signature moves, only reinforced that belief. Johnson joked in the moment, but the message was clear. That scene summed up exactly why he has no interest in coming back, and why he wishes Cejudo had stayed retired.
Justin Gaethje has weighed in on the growing calls for a rematch with Paddy Pimblett, and it's not the response the baddie will want to hear. After their brutal UFC 324 headliner for the interim lightweight title, some fans have pushed the idea of running it back, but Gaethje doesn't see much reason for it right now. Their 5-round war was an instant fight of the year contender, with both men battered and bloodied by the final horn. Gaethje ultimately walked away with a unanimous decision victory, solidifying himself as the clear next challenger for Ilia Topuria's undisputed lightweight championship. At this stage of his career, that's where his focus remains. In the immediate aftermath of the fight, Pimblett was respectful and avoided excuses, but that tone shifted slightly in a recent video. The Liverpool native admitted he was frustrated by several aspects of the bout, particularly repeated eye pokes that he believes contributed heavily to the damage he absorbed over 25 minutes. While still giving Gaethje credit, Pimblett openly called for a rematch, saying there were elements of the fight that continued to bother him, and expressing hope they could settle it again down the line. Gaethje, however, isn't biting. Speaking ahead of the release of Pimblett's video, the newly crowned interim champion made it clear that a second fight doesn't align with his current goals. He explained that he's chasing the very top of the lightweight division, and that a rematch with Pimblett simply doesn't make sense given the logjam of contenders and the opportunity in front of him. When asked to put Pimblett into perspective compared to the elite names he's faced throughout his career, Gaethje didn't sugarcoat his answer. He acknowledged Pimblett's talent and potential, but stressed that he shared the octagon with the very best lightweights of this era, and Pimblett isn't in that category yet. According to Gaethje, the Brit is still young, still developing, and still has plenty to prove before he can be mentioned alongside the division's established greats. For Pimblett, the message is clear. While the door may not be permanently closed, Gaethje's attention is firmly fixed on championship gold in legacy-defining fights. A rematch, at least for now, is a distraction he has no interest in entertaining.
Winning a fight usually comes with a microphone and a moment to define what it meant. Cong didn't get that at UFC Vegas 113. She won, improved her record, and then walked out of the octagon without a post-fight interview, without questions, without any chance to speak. The silence was noticeable, and it didn't go unnoticed by her either. Instead of letting it pass, Cong created her own moment. Speaking directly to fans on social media in Chinese, she addressed the snub head-on and immediately shifted the focus to what comes next. This wasn't just a generic call-out. It was direct, deliberate, and aimed squarely at Tracy Cortez, with an unexpected reference that pulled Pereira into the conversation despite him having nothing to do with the card. Fresh off her third straight UFC win, Cong made it clear she knew exactly what she was doing. She acknowledged the lack of an interview, then calmly announced she was challenging her next opponent. Cortez was her choice, and Cong didn't hide it. She opened with compliments, calling Cortez beautiful and impressive, but quickly followed with a sharper edge, telling her it was time to return to fighting. That's when the line that caught everyone's attention landed. Cong told Cortez to stop being passionate about love and champions, adding that it's better to be a champion than to be in love. The comment instantly echoed ongoing fan chatter surrounding Cortez's highly publicized relationship and split with Pereira. Even though both fighters have moved on professionally, the association still lingers, and Cong leaned into it without hesitation. She closed the message with a blunt push: "Get back to work." The call-out carried weight because of how Cong earned it. Her fight with Eduardo Mora was messy, tense, and difficult from the start, with both fighters missing weight. It wasn't a flawless performance, but Cong delivered the most damaging moments, including an early knockdown and sustained pressure when it mattered most. When the fight turned into a test of toughness and composure, she handled it better. Cortez, meanwhile, sits at a crossroads. Ranked 9th at flyweight and coming off a loss to Erin Blanchfield, she has no next fight booked and plenty of questions about what's next. A matchup with Cong, ranked 12th, makes sense competitively. For Cong, the message was simple. If the UFC won't give her the mic, she'll find her own way to be heard, and she'll aim that spotlight at someone with something to lose. Cortez's personal life continuing to intersect with MMA storylines only adds fuel. It's not the first time either. Her past relationship with Brian Ortega resurfaced during the fallout from UFC 326, when Ortega's withdrawal sparked an ugly reaction from Renato Moicano. What should have been a straightforward cancellation spiraled into a public rant that drifted into personal territory, dragging Cortez into a situation that had nothing to do with her. Context matters there too. Ortega's withdrawal came after long layoffs, declining momentum, and ongoing weight cut issues that already raised concerns. Still, Cortez once again found herself attached to a narrative she didn't create. Cong's call-out tapped into that reality, turning silence into attention and positioning herself as a problem the division can't ignore anymore. Jon Jones wasn't thrilled that a private conversation about his health made its way into the public eye, and he didn't hide his frustration over the leak. Addressing the situation, Jones made it clear that the discussion was never meant to be shared, calling out the person responsible in blunt terms and stressing that it crossed a line. In his view, it wasn't just gossip leaking out, it was personal information that had nothing to do with promoting a fight or stirring debate online. The comments came after Jones' remarks about dealing with severe arthritis began circulating, particularly in relation to why he has no interest in wrestling Daniel Cormier under the Real American Freestyle banner. Jones explained that his left hip is heavily affected by arthritis, and that most people have no idea how much pain he's been managing behind the scenes. He recalled going to bed in intense pain during his last training camp, underscoring that this isn't a minor issue or something he's exaggerating for effect. More than anything, Jones framed it as a quality-of-life decision at this stage of his career. With a 3-year-old son at home, he said he wants to preserve what he has left physically, especially his hips, so he can be present and active as a father. For him, that reality outweighs any appeal of novelty matchups or side ventures, and it's exactly why he was upset that such a personal, off-the-record moment was aired out for everyone to dissect.
Yoel Romero isn't wasting any time getting back into action, even after a chaotic and controversial start to his year. Just days after being forced out of a BKFC light heavyweight title fight, the former UFC title challenger has already signed on for another bare-knuckle bout, this time under a completely different banner. Romero was originally scheduled to challenge Lorenzo Hunt for the BKFC Light Heavyweight Championship on Saturday night. That fight fell apart at the last minute when Romero was ruled out due to illness, reportedly the flu. With Romero sidelined, Hunt was left scrambling and instead agreed to face David Mundell in a catchweight bout, keeping himself active while the title opportunity slipped away. The withdrawal only added to what has been a rough stretch for the Olympic silver medalist. Romero was expected to kick off 2026 in a big way at RAF 05 last month against Bo Nickel, but that bout unraveled when Romero missed weight. As a result, he was stripped of his belt and ended up facing Stephen Buchanan instead, suffering a clear defeat in a fight that raised questions about where Romero currently stands competitively. Despite all that, Romero has already lined up his next move. In a video shared on Instagram by the International Boxing Association, Romero can be seen signing a contract to compete under the IBA Bare Knuckle banner. The bout is set to take place at IBA BK4 in Russia, though no opponent, venue, or official date has been announced yet. Still, the signing confirms that Romero has no intention of slowing down. The timing of the announcement raised eyebrows from fans, especially given how recently he pulled out of the BKFC title fight. Some questioned whether illness was truly the reason for his withdrawal, skepticism that was echoed by Hunt himself. "He don't look like he got the flu to me," Hunt wrote publicly, a comment that fueled further debate online. Fan reaction has been split. While many sided with Hunt and accused Romero of ducking the title fight, others were simply excited to see the 46-year-old powerhouse continue competing across different combat sports. As one fan put it, Romero remains the freak of all freaks, a label that still seems to follow him wherever he goes. Whether the move to IBA Bare Knuckle quiets the criticism or adds more fuel to it remains to be seen. But one thing is clear: Yoel Romero is far from done, and controversy continues to trail him just as closely as his reputation for being one of the most unique athletes combat sports has ever seen.
Ian Machado Garry has weighed in on how he thinks the UFC welterweight division should move forward, and, unsurprisingly, he sees himself firmly at the center of it all. Garry recently climbed to the number 2 spot in the 170-pound rankings after Shavkat Rakhmonov, the only man to hand him a professional loss, was removed from the list. Since that setback in 2024, the future has rebounded impressively, first stepping in on short notice in 2025 to defeat Carlos Prates before following it up with a statement win over Belal Muhammad at UFC Qatar. Those performances have reignited his momentum and pushed him back into serious title contention, with his sights now set on reigning welterweight champion and pound-for-pound standout Islam Makhachev. Garry isn't the only one circling the title picture, though. Former champion Kamaru Usman, unbeaten prospect Michael Morales, and Carlos Prates have all expressed interest in fighting for the belt next. On the champion's side, Makhachev has publicly stated that Usman represents the toughest challenge for him at welterweight, given his experience, physicality, and wrestling pedigree. Still, Garry believes the division can be streamlined with the right matchups, and he's laid out his vision for how things should unfold. In a recent Instagram video, Garry explained that everyone has an opinion on who should fight who at 170 pounds, before offering his own take with clear reasoning behind each pairing. He first suggested a matchup between Carlos Prates and Michael Morales, arguing that they are both dangerous power punchers and that it's a fight fans deserve to see. Garry added that while the bout makes sense on paper, he doubts Morales would accept it, claiming that Prates carries the heavier hands and presents a serious risk. He then turned his attention to a potential clash between Jack Della Maddalena and Kamaru Usman, noting that while he's also intrigued by the idea of Prates fighting Della Maddalena, the Usman matchup would answer far more questions. Garry said he wants to see whether Della Maddalena has truly evolved, specifically if he can handle elite-level takedowns and continue to improve, while also questioning whether Usman still has the tools and intensity needed to turn back another young contender. Finally, Garry made it clear that in his mind, the welterweight title fight is already decided. Declaring himself the rightful next challenger, he confidently stated that he wants to see Islam Makhachev defend his belt against the #1 contender in the world, which he believes is himself. With that, Garry left little doubt about his ambitions, positioning himself not just as part of the conversation, but as the inevitable next opponent for the champion.
Vinicius Oliveira suffered the first loss of his UFC career on Saturday night, tapping to a rear-naked choke against Mario Bautista in the main event of UFC Vegas 113 on February 8th in Las Vegas, and later revealed that he entered the fight with a serious injury. Speaking to AG Fight after the event, Lockdog disclosed that he fractured the ulna bone in his right forearm on December 19th, just 51 days before the bout, yet chose not to withdraw despite the setback. Oliveira admitted that pulling out was an option, but he made the decision to push forward anyway, even though there was little he could do to properly address the injury. He explained that much of his training camp was spent with his arm in a cast, calling the choice reckless in hindsight, but said the injury was kept quiet because he was fully determined to compete no matter the circumstances. According to Oliveira, the injury significantly affected his performance, particularly early in the fight when the pain resurfaced almost immediately. He said that after being taken down in the opening round, he was unable to use his usual frames and defensive movements to work his way back to his feet because that was exactly where the pain was concentrated. Even simple movements caused sharp discomfort, and he told his corner between rounds that the arm was hurting badly. Despite that, he chose to continue fighting through it, though he admitted the pain became overwhelming. Oliveira added that even throwing light jabs or shadowboxing motions caused intense pain, as the movement of punching the air alone aggravated the fracture. Following the loss, Oliveira revealed that the Nevada Athletic Commission handed him a 180-day medical suspension, and he acknowledged that he now needs to seriously consider moving up to featherweight in the future. He explained that he typically walks around at roughly 185 pounds outside of camp and had to cut close to 50 pounds between Monday and Friday of fight week, which proved to be the most difficult weight cut of his career. The injury prevented him from training properly, making it much harder to shed the weight, as he was forced to train at a moderate pace and avoid cardio altogether. Oliveira said that any arm movement caused pain, further complicating an already brutal cut. Prior to the defeat,
Oliveira was a perfect 4-0 inside the UFC octagon, with notable wins over Said Nurmagomedov and Ricky Simon, as well as a first-round knockout on Dana White's Contender Series, making this his first loss in nearly 4 years. Dana White has a tough call on his hands after how UFC Vegas 113 played out, especially with the first fight night of 2026 leaving a lot to be desired. The card was capped by a solid performance from Mario Bautista, who closed the show with a submission win over Vinicius Oliveira, but beyond that and a couple of other moments, the night struggled to generate much excitement. For many fans watching from home, it felt like one of those apex events that dragged on, with the low point being a heavyweight bout that somehow went the full 3 rounds without offering much in the way of drama or urgency. That kind of performance only amplified existing frustration around the heavyweight division and certain fighters within it. Jailton Almeida, who entered the night ranked 6th at heavyweight, was coming off a narrow split decision loss to Alexander Volkov in a title eliminator last October and was looking to reassert himself against unranked Rizvan Kuniev. Instead, Almeida dropped a second straight decision, and the reaction online was brutal. Fans quickly turned on him, labeling his style boring and ineffective, with many openly calling for the UFC to release him despite his ranking and recent proximity to title contention. Social media was flooded with posts demanding he be cut immediately, with little patience shown for his resume or his potential to bounce back. While Almeida would reasonably expect another chance to right the ship in 2026, the optics aren't great when a ranked heavyweight becomes synonymous with dull fights, especially in a division already criticized for its lack of depth. That criticism isn't new either, and Joe Rogan has been one of the loudest voices hammering the point home for years. The longtime UFC commentator has repeatedly described heavyweight as the most shallow division in the company, and he doubled down on that stance recently by suggesting that even a 2-0 Gable Steveson could compete with top 10 heavyweights right now. Rogan even went as far as saying that a brawler like Tank Abbott, fighting in today's era, would still run through a large portion of the lower-tier heavyweight roster simply due to his size, power, and willingness to engage. Taken together, UFC Vegas 113 didn't just deliver a forgettable night of fights, it reignited an uncomfortable conversation for the promotion about roster depth, entertainment value, and whether certain fighters are helping or hurting the product. For Dana White, deciding who stays, who goes, and how to inject life into a struggling division may end up being one of the more important outcomes of an otherwise uneventful event. Alex Pereira's next combat sports appearance might not take place inside the octagon, and that possibility is starting to feel more real by the day. The reigning UFC light heavyweight champion still doesn't have his next MMA fight booked, despite continued pressure from Pereira himself to move up to heavyweight and chase something historic. After knocking out Magomed Ankalaev last October to reclaim the 205-pound title and settle the score from earlier in the year, Poatan has been vocal about wanting either a blockbuster heavyweight clash with Jon Jones or the chance to become a 3-division UFC champion in 2026. While the UFC figures out what to do with him, Pereira isn't content with sitting on the sidelines. Reports suggest he's actively exploring other competitive outlets to stay sharp, and one intriguing option has emerged away from MMA altogether. According to recent interviews, negotiations are ongoing for Pereira to take part in a grappling match against UFC middleweight Shara Magomedov, better known as Bullet. The talks were confirmed by Magomedov's manager, Rizvan Magomedov, who acknowledged that discussions are active and that both sides are waiting on a date, ideally tied to an event in the Middle East or another major international location. Magomedov's camp seems to view the matchup as both a stylistic curiosity and a strategic step forward. His manager noted that Shara is quietly transitioning from being seen purely as a striker into someone more comfortable engaging in wrestling and grappling exchanges. Framing the matchup as 2 elite strikers colliding in a grappling-only environment, he suggested it would be compelling simply because neither man is traditionally known for that realm, adding to the intrigue. Pereira, for his part, has already shown a willingness to test himself outside his comfort zone, and this would be another example of that mindset. If the match does happen, Pereira would be stepping into territory where another high-level UFC fighter recently fell short. Tsarukyan, who went on a strong grappling run last year, faced Magomedov in his final outing of 2025, but couldn't secure a submission, resulting in a draw. That result came despite Tsarukyan having victories over well-known names like Benson Henderson and Patricky Pitbull in prior matches, underscoring that Magomedov is no easy task even for seasoned grapplers. The situation reflects a broader trend in modern MMA, where top fighters are increasingly staying active outside the UFC while waiting for clarity on their next official bout. Promotions focused on grappling or alternative rule sets have become common destinations, giving athletes a way to compete, earn, and evolve without taking full MMA damage. For Pereira, a grappling match could serve as both a competitive outlet and a way to sharpen skills that might become crucial if and when he makes the jump to heavyweight or takes on another elite challenge back in the UFC.
Movsar Evloev has made it clear that he isn't particularly interested in seeing Tsarukyan set his sights on the UFC featherweight title, especially while he believes that belt already belongs to him. Tsarukyan currently sits as the number 2 ranked lightweight contender after Justin Gaethje claimed the interim title last month and jumped into the top spot, leaving the Armenian star in a familiar position of waiting. Recently, Tsarukyan floated the idea of dropping down to 145 pounds to challenge reigning 2-time featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski. He explained that if a lightweight title shot isn't next for him, he would be open to chasing gold at featherweight, winning the belt there and then eventually returning to 155 pounds after a few years. It's an ambitious plan, but one that immediately caught the attention of fighters already entrenched in the featherweight title picture. Undefeated contender Movsar Evloev addressed Tsarukyan's comments in a calm but confident manner. Speaking to Submission Radio, Evloev said that while he respects Tsarukyan and considers him a friend due to their shared training history, he doesn't want anyone else even talking about the featherweight championship. Evloev suggested that Tsarukyan should stay busy against someone like Jean Silva, while he himself focuses on capturing the belt. According to Evloev, the featherweight title is his goal and his alone, and he has no intention of stepping aside or entertaining outside challengers until that mission is complete. Evloev is set to face number 3 ranked Lerone Murphy at UFC London in a high-stakes clash between 2 undefeated contenders. The winner of that bout is widely expected to earn a title shot against Volkanovski later this year, further solidifying Evloev's claim that he's next in line at 145 pounds. Meanwhile, Tsarukyan remains in limbo at lightweight after being passed over for a title opportunity for multiple reasons. For now, Tsarukyan will have to wait and see how the lightweight title picture plays out, particularly the upcoming unification bout between Ilia Topuria and Justin Gaethje. If Topuria emerges victorious, he has already shown little interest in facing Tsarukyan. If Gaethje were to pull off the win and choose not to retire immediately, a title defense against Tsarukyan could make sense. Until then, Tsarukyan's ambitions may be forced to remain on hold, whether at lightweight or featherweight.
Kyoji Horiguchi has his sights firmly set on UFC gold, and after his win at UFC Vegas 113, that motivation doesn't appear to be fading anytime soon. The Japanese standout squared off with Amir Albazi in a crucial flyweight matchup this past Saturday, marking his second fight since returning to the UFC. Horiguchi made a statement in his comeback last November by stopping Tagir via technical submission, and with this latest result, he has moved to a confident 2-0 in his second UFC run. Against Albazi, the number 6th ranked contender, Horiguchi delivered a composed and technical performance that earned him a unanimous decision victory. Speaking at the UFC Vegas 113 post-fight press conference, the former Rizin champion made it clear that his ultimate objective is to capture the UFC Flyweight Championship, regardless of who is holding the belt. Even if that champion ends up being his close friend and training partner Alexandre Pantoja, Horiguchi says it wouldn't change his mindset. For him, the goal is simple and uncompromising: win the belt no matter who stands across from him. Pantoja, who previously held the flyweight title, lost the championship in unfortunate fashion due to a freak injury. Just seconds into his title defense against Joshua Van at UFC 323, Pantoja landed awkwardly and suffered a dislocated arm, forcing a stoppage that crowned Van as the new champion. While there's no clear timeline for Pantoja's return, Horiguchi has been respectful about the situation and made it clear he doesn't expect to jump ahead of his teammate when he comes back. He emphasized that Pantoja earned his status through multiple defenses and considers him the rightful champion, viewing the loss as nothing more than an accident. Horiguchi's recent run only strengthens his case as a legitimate title contender. He is now 7-0 with one no contest in his last 8 fights, picking up notable wins over fighters like Sergio Pettis, Albazi, and Ulanbekov during this stretch. To find his last defeat, you'd have to go all the way back to April 2022, when he dropped a unanimous decision to Patchy Mix. Mix, who was recently released by the UFC, has since returned to Rizin in Japan, closing that chapter as Horiguchi continues to build momentum toward another shot at championship glory.